experience is the experiment.
Today's guest is a producer and guitar player who hails from Baltimore, Maryland, but has since made his way to Los Angeles, California. He's played, produced, and performed with many of your favorite artists, including Miguel, Snoop Dogg, John Lennon, Christian French, and Machine Gun Kelly. Please welcome today's guest, Falconry.
Hey, bud.
Did I get everything correct?
Nailed it. You said John London, but you meant John Legend.
I did mean John Legend.
And I only really played with him for a very short amount of time, for like maybe one day.
But it happened.
So,
who are some other people that you're proud of?
for playing guitar specifically, like tour stuff?
Yeah, all the above.
Miguel is the thing that made me who I am in a lot of ways. I spent the most time there, and he and I saw eye to eye in a really special way. But other shows that I really liked, Vic Mensa, we did a lot of touring with. And
he's great.
Yeah, he and I also align in a lot of really ways that are important to me, from like a rebel music type of standpoint.
Totally.
And
he used to have house shows, right?
oh, did you come to one?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Did you play?
Yeah, of course. We were in a band called 93 Punks.
Oh, I saw you then.
Yeah.
With Wes.
Yeah, West Period.
West Period.
Wow.
And that was the last show he did at his place in
Silver Lake.
Silver Lake.
That had Silver House.
Yeah, with the design room on like the third floor.
Yeah. That's where we were making all the clothes, and a lot of where I was inspired to start taking up like making clothes came from Vic and Conrad in that house. And I brought West Period to that show.
Really?
Because he's my homie's cousin, and we were throwing all these crazy shows and wanted people who could meet our energy. And at that time, very few people could.
I thought the floor was going to break. That was one of the most amazing experiences.
Yeah, so cool. We did it. At some point, in a very sort of like cinematic way, helicopters started showing up very regularly when we would throw those shows, and it was like a real menace to society type energy. And then we had to stop doing it.
Man, what a freaking trip.
Yeah.
Small world.
I'm really glad you came to that show. To me, every time we did that for that year, it was right before lockdown, I was transported back to Baltimore in the era where I was becoming obsessed, and like all of that. It was just very tangible.
Man, what a trip. Will you take me back to there real fast? How'd you find your start back in Baltimore?
In Baltimore? The scene was, and hopefully remains, it's been a long time now. I've been out here like 12, 15 odd years. But back then, when I was a kid, being in a band was the thing. Being in a rock band was like, there was a whole community there that was like, the radio stations were about it. And the city is always kind of underdog to Philly and New York above us. And it has this real like sort of gritty, like, the little engine that could type thing. And
totally.
That's where like punk and rock and roll stuff is at its most fiery and
absolutely
vicious. And so I started a band when I was 15. I was working at it. We'll see how granular you want to get about this story, because I am in love with that city and that time of my life. But I got a job at a Irish pub. I was washing dishes. There next to me washing dishes would become my drummer, and behind the sous chef or whatever was going to be my singer. And they were all older than me by a couple years. I was like the little young buck, but 15, they brought me in. We jammed in little dingy basements for a long time and built this band around it. And we made a couple records and played a bunch of rad shows. And I learned everything really there about stage presence, or what I care about in performance, and how to use this instrument, not just guitar, but like the instrument of music and culture and stuff.
Absolutely.
And and we played a bunch of shows and rocked out and toured a little bit. And then I moved to LA right when the getting was good, right when, in a way that remains heartbreaking, I came, and nobody else made it.
Interesting. Do you think that part of the impetus for your success was the ability to kind of step away from what's working and go towards something, towards the place that's going to allow even larger success, even if it takes a few steps back?
Turns out it is central to my story that I left my hometown and came to LA. I marvel at people who are able to remain the hometown hero and like and stay in that, you know, supporting their, I wish I could be in Baltimore, knowing what's happening with the scene there and like bringing up young people from there. Sidebar, I just saw Turnstile like 2 nights ago at Palladium, and they're Baltimore boys, and they're like from there, you know what I mean? And they did it from there. Yeah. And, that sounds sick, but I did catch like a wild hair and like a wanderlust, and I had broken up with my girlfriend at the time. I was like 18 or 19. I was heartbroken. I had to leave. I had to just evacuate, and so that's what I did. And in retrospect, it was the smartest thing I ever did. But if I could have done it from Baltimore, I probably would have. I just needed a bigger megaphone, and I needed a more worldly experience.
Retrospect is the killer of all bullshit. You need those 15 steps ahead to look back and realize that would have been a cool opportunity. But also, you don't know what the retrospect would have looked like if you stayed.
I have often told the story thusly that when I came out here, I got to reinvent myself. I didn't really know it at the time, but I was a perfect stranger. And so I either had to keep telling the same story about myself or tell new stories or whatever it was. It wasn't like deceptive. You're a stranger in a strange land. And that was so important to me too, to feel like I have a new launch pad and like how I want to represent how do I want to reflect to the world. And in my hometown, unless you are really in touch with that and you are a firebrand, people know you from when you're a kid, and that's like how you remain. Absolutely. And you're always that way. There's of course something like healthy and sweet about that.
You're always wearing the name tag that you started with.
That you know. And so, like I'm saying, people who are able to do it and become themselves in a familiar place, I think is rad. But for me, coming out here, and it didn't have to be LA. I could have gone anywhere, but anywhere different and unfamiliar and scary. Yeah. And then people are challenging me and asking me where I'm from, and I got to come up with an answer, and like it really helped build a foundation that I wouldn't have had to if I was just in my spot. You know? Absolutely.
And looking back, what was the reason for staying?
Staying here?
Yeah.
Man. It just went like day one was insane. Day one was so the most groaning LA manifest destiny story. From like, I came out here to go to school.
Okay.
And I met the professor that first day, who is like the big boss of the music program and like real terrifying, and he's like the genius, you know? And I had driven across country with my homie, and all I had was an acoustic guitar in the trunk. Ultimately, I was going to like ship all my amps and stuff out, but all I had was this acoustic guitar. And he's like, grab your guitar, we're going to play. And he had like gathered some jazz cats around. And I was like, so not ready. I'm like dusty, just came from the Grand Canyon. And like, I'm like, oh no, I just have like my acoustic. Like I can't play jazz with you guys right now. And he's like, I don't care. Get it.
Yeah.
And he like is like towering over me. You know what I mean? And my friend who came with me, who's like an athlete and always shows up, always ready, was forever the gold medal winner, was like,
totally.
Are you going to get it? He's like, don't worry, Drew, I'll get the guitar. He's like loving the challenge. And so we played, and it was great. And I just loved the bar for excellence was just raised so intensely. And I loved that.
Where were you as a guitar player at that point?
I've always been really curious, so I don't think I was nearly like I wasn't competitive as it turns out, but I thought I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could totally listen. I'm a good listener. And so when I'm playing with cats, like I was able to pay attention to stuff. I didn't necessarily have like the vocabulary I have now, or maybe a certain amount of confidence, which is really important to it. It's like, one, do you know how to say stuff? And then two, are you free enough to say it,
That's
and
massive.
how to have a conversation. So I knew how to converse. I just probably was using like a lot of one syllable words,
Totally. Was your theory up to par at that point? Could you go sit with any group and hold your own?
Not yet. But I figured it out there. Yeah, it was really intense there.
What school was this?
CSUN, Cal State.
Yeah, isn't that over by Glendale?
Well, it's in Northridge. So Glendale, we're in Glendale right now. It's like west of here a little bit.
West of here.
It's like deep in the valley. It's this old school place that like crashed in an earthquake 20 years ago, and they've rebuilt from it. And
really,
yeah. But I at the time, I didn't know. I thought I was like in Hollywood. I was sitting in Northridge was
absolutely
Hollywood to me.
All of LA was Hollywood when you first moved here.
I was like, I'm here, man. And yeah, then theory came really heavy, and it is part of what I love about music is the divine numerology and stuff that works in there. But I don't think I had it figured out yet.
And how far into your school experience or your experience in LA did you start finding gigs and jobs outside of school?
Well, funny enough, I don't know why I was just going to say, you had said that your roommate is bartending on top of writing songs. Tonight, I'm going to, when we're done here, I'm going to go meet up with a bunch of people who I used to bartend with at the Viper Room. The Viper Room, my favorite club in LA and in the world.
I played it my first show out here.
Your first show. Yeah. Boom. First club I went to in LA. Huh. Okay.
My dad brought me, when we first moved out here, my dad met my girlfriend and I, took me to the Rainbow Room, the Viper Room, and the Roxy.
Yeah,
and he took me and he goes, I want you to see where you're going to be playing one day.
I love that story. My first time I came out the year before I moved out, I came with my friend Ben, who was moving. I drove out with him, got my toes wet. Yeah. And that first night we pulled up, we went to Viper Room, and I was not old enough to come in. And I remember I was wearing an Echo Unlimited sweatsuit. I always remember this because I was very drippy in Baltimore, but in LA it looked insane because I probably was wearing Timberlands and like a bandana and all this shit. And but they did let me in, and I saw Nuno Betancourt and Gary Sharon play More Than Words. The dudes from Extreme played More Than Words because Steel Panther, which before Steel Panther, there were Metal School, and before that, there were Metal Shop, and that was at Viper. Anyways, I'm just like watching this insane thing. They're playing More Than Words on stage, and it's the dudes. And anyways, fast forward a year later, I move out, I go to school, I started bartending there, and I was playing shows the next day. A lot of gates came crashing down just by virtue of like doing it and being really delusional. And
was that by virtue of doing it, or is that by virtue of knocking on doors until you got the gigs?
The Viper Room thing came because actually it was a really humbling experience that got me there. I had a homegirl named Red. She was this Puerto Rican chick from the Bronx and was always like very pushy and making everybody do cool stuff. Yeah. And she said to me, she's like, you should go to the intern. There's a whole book in this office and you could go intern at any record label that you want. You should do it. And then she checked in with me the next day and she's like, did you do it? And finally I went and like just kind of flipped open the book and the Viper Room thing was there. And I like made a call or however it happened and they had me come in and I interned there for about 2 weeks before they figured out that I was a terrible intern and I had no business making copies or like whatever type of shit they were trying to have me do. And so instead, a dude who became my mentor there, Joe Rinaldi, absolute god, was like, well, listen, we can't really have you working here in the office, but you can come back tonight and bartend if you want to.
Wow.
And I don't even think I was 21 yet, but I had just like gained their trust somehow.
Totally.
And so I started bartending and then, or bar backing and then bartending, the trajectory. And then I started booking shows there.
And what was your first show there? Was it you or was it you playing with somebody?
Interesting. I very rarely play like solo shows, so it probably wasn't that. But my first show that I played there, man, I played there with so many iterations. At that time in my life, like going to school and like being a kid, I was playing with every little singer-songwriter, every rapper, every trying to be in bands that would do Warped Tour thing. And
Man, if 5 people, 10 people who are listening to this can understand what you just said and take that into their own path, that you were willing to do whatever it took and play with whoever it was to make sure you were on stage, learning, practicing, playing.
yeah,
That's what it takes. That's
Yeah.
100% of what it takes.
it wears a lot of people down. I think it's a fair assessment that like being in one band is your entire spirit. In Baltimore, it was. I would have never considered in Baltimore playing in 2 bands. You know what I mean? All I wanted to do is ride for my one band and get it tattooed and just be around them at all times. That's all I wanted. Upon coming here is a different perspective, which is maybe the dark side of it is that like it's a career path and like you have to, it's not even a dark side, but it's like, you know, the less fun side is like you better show up every day.
Absolutely.
But the sweet side of it and the side that I insist on focusing upon is that there's just tons of badass people here, and what a shame if I didn't play with all of them and share with all of them.
Absolutely.
And it just made, it was an accelerated way to becoming a great artist, was like picking the brains of other artists and like having that, you know, copulating all the time. So for a lot of people, I think it's fair that it's like obsessive to do one thing. If you're an artist, like do your art to the exclusion of everything else. To me at the time, my art was, I will take this instrument anywhere and everywhere and put on many hats. And I thought then, and I still think now, that I can be convincing in a lot of different ways. In a hip hop space, I can be totally, like come at that from really an authentic place and in like a real metal throwdown way. And so that is the thing that I just like doing, is having variety. It's not, I don't think everybody needs to do that, but it's what I like.
It's also the camaraderie, the people, the community that you're building along the way is
Everything.
the most valuable thing that I think that you can gain from this industry is the people, is the connections, the friendships, is people who understand when you say, no, I got to practice. To them, that's not, oh, you're not going to come hang out with us. That's, wow, this guy really gives a shit.
Amen.
That's fucking everything. That's how you get to being at a place where you're at, or something like that. Is just, if you don't have the community, then you could be the best musician in the world, but who's going to hear it, first of all? Mm-hmm. How are you going to learn more than what you know? And how are you going to get yourself on stage?
Yeah. Having people that around you that are supportive is, cannot be overstated how important that is. I've said it a lot about my people back in Baltimore. Now we're harping on that place and those people a lot, but I am, I'll be eternally grateful that I never felt, to this day, I haven't felt a guilt trip. Nobody has ever told me, or if they did, I didn't hear it, about like, oh, you left. And what you're out there like thinking that you're fancy. And a lot of people run into that, who come to, again, it doesn't have to be in Los Angeles, but folks who like leave town and take the leap of faith and bet on themselves. There are family members or old friends or foes, whatever it is, who like, by virtue of their own fear and insecurities, are like trying to hold you down.
They feel let down, yeah.
You know, and it's a shame, because it's hard enough as it is to face yourself every day and face the art every day. Totally. And to be that vulnerable and to be competing in a space where everybody is beautiful and talented and badass and worthy. So to have people that you know and love make it harder for you is insane. Yeah. And I didn't feel like that. I've always felt like the community here and at home and the world at large has really helped build me up, you know? So
I'm going to play devil's advocate on that. Do you feel like for a lot of people, the push against what they're doing also acts as fuel to help them work harder?
It is, of course, motivating to plenty of people. My instincts are not fueled by spite, but fear and anger are really motivating. And I love heavy music and I love protest music. I mean, let's say that if I'm writing a rebel record, it is going to be fueled by a discontent and that I'm trying to. So actually, plenty of what I do is fueled by that. So it's cool. You just got to make sure you're doing therapy whether that be on stage or otherwise,
Absolutely.
so that you have a place for that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think music is a perfect way to address what is going to happen to us, which is, yeah, people aren't always going to see eye to eye, and some folks are going to take you the wrong way, and we're just going to be leading by fear a lot. Just as humans, we're just going to be, and so it's going to happen to us. So music is a really cool way to do that. I don't think that's my guiding principle, but sometimes it is.
Totally. And I guess it depends on the person. And if you've had that pushback and that friction when you come out here, you probably had it before. There's probably the same people in your family who are also giving you shit for wearing the pants you're wearing and the shirt you're wearing and not going to this school and all of that. So I guess you learn to adapt to your life and the people that are in it. But similarly to you, I didn't have pushback. Not there's always going to be a few people, but nobody that was loud enough for me to hear.
Right.
My dad said he's only helping me pay for school if it's music school.
Huh.
My parents helped me pack my shit when I was coming out here.
Cool.
My girlfriend drove with me the whole way, even though she wasn't moving here. It's like, I got very lucky.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's been more than enough people telling me I'm not good enough or not willing and I'm not going to make it or whatever. But I agree with you. And for me personally, the pushback doesn't always give me fuel. Sometimes it's something that I dwell on for too long to use it as fuel.
Yeah.
But for some people, I definitely see the utility in it, if used correctly.
What is for sure always going to be the case is each of us is going to be self-centered. And that can be toxic and narcissistic, but it can also be based in like health and ambition and you know what I mean? But for sure, we're all coming at it from like our own needs, hierarchy of needs being met, or my own sort of fears manifesting or whatever. So when people are giving me a hard time, if they are, it's on me, it's on you, it's on us to decide how much stock I'm going to put in that. I have found, I don't even remember, maybe it's in the past years, like I was doing a bunch of meditation and therapy and shit over the pandemic, and I'm really grateful for that time and space to like do that. One of the things I found is it's never, ever, ever personal. Yeah. Anybody trying to hurt me or talk shit about a thing or whatever it is, literally never has anything to do with me. Yeah. Ever. It's forever about their own fears and insecurities, which I empathize with. It's not even like I got mine too. I'm not always the nicest person, and sometimes I pop off and project and stuff, you know? So I don't even remember where I learned. I probably like literally read it on a meme that was like somebody saying like, if you got a problem with me, it's not really a problem with me, it's a problem with you. And I'm like, it dawned on me that day. And so as we are, to your point, when you are running into inevitable setbacks or naysayers or what have you, like how much are you internalizing that? I don't think it's that I or you have more or less of those things. I think it's how much sleep do I lose when somebody has a raw take on me? Yeah. And I currently lose very little sleep.
Trust me, I live for the experiment. But there is one place in my life that I don't want to be an experiment, and that's when trimming my balls. Luckily, the Performance 4.0 package is here. Inside this package, you will find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, the Performance boxer briefs, and a new travel bag to hold all of your new favorite things. I needed the Lawnmower 4.0 so much more than I ever realized. This thing has a ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents, all thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, a flashlight so I can actually see where I'm trimming, and not only that, but this thing's waterproof, so I can trim just about anywhere. I love this thing, and I love the whole 4.0 package, from the Lawnmower, the Weed Whacker, the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, and all the free gifts they threw in. Trust me, fellas, your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code EXPERIMENT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code EXPERIMENT at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
it comes and goes. You know
Yeah,
what I
it's a
mean?
thing in waves.
Yeah, right now I feel really good about it. And that's it, man. The feeling is what it is. The emotion around it is like really what we're going for. And that's for free.
Yeah.
I get to decide how much I give a shit about people being nice or not being nice, you know?
I just listened to this podcast with the comedian Duncan Trussell on it.
Of course.
Love him.
Absolutely. I listen to his podcast a lot too.
He's one of the most far out, beautiful human beings.
Cool.
And he said this thing. He said, I'm trying a new practice, which is every time I believe that somebody else is judging or I have something that I wish they were doing, I incumbent on myself. This person, God, I wish they had a little bit more understanding of that I'm trying and I'm tired today. Okay, so now I'm going to have that exact same attitude towards the next person. And rather than projecting his feelings, he internalizes it and uses the same thought process that he wished somebody else was using. He accentuates it within his own self and understands that that person is having a day.
Yeah.
And they're going to go through that day whether you say something or not.
Right.
And the only thing you can get out of it is your own perspective.
It's a gift among gifts, man.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? To let that shit go. And cool. Yeah. No surprise that Duncan Trussell has like a galaxy brain take on that.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful man.
I'm big on law of attraction. That's another thing that I really leaned into over the past couple of years. And he has come up in that type of pursuit,
Absolutely.
you know, and other sort of like thought leaders in that way, or like spiritual type cats. And it just is the realist, bro. It's just the realist. It's the only thing.
I enjoy people the most that I don't always agree with, but I always believe that they believe what they're saying. You know, I don't have to. In fact, if I'm listening to only people that I agree with, probably not learning very much.
Not
I already
very
agree with them.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to somebody who you don't always agree with, but you trust the fact that they believe what they're saying and that they mean it, there's something so much more powerful about it. And throughout this industry, I've started realizing that those are the people I'm trying to attach myself to, is the people that don't always tell me the best news, but they tell me the news they believe is to be the most accurate. They're not saying it for the other person.
You had said something before we started about you and Cole doing the pilgrimage, the birthright thing.
Yeah.
And Cole from BSD, big shout out.
Love those guys.
And how you're reminding me of that right now, just the wealth and like how, what am I searching for? That having people around you with a different perspective and or different jump off point and different spawn points and different worldview is everything, man. And why the Jewish community just has it right, sending all the youth across the way to, I mean, I literally think every single young person, regardless of your religious affiliation, should be made to go overseas.
I couldn't agree more in any. There's nothing about that I would change. And we had a great conversation about this earlier, but kind of to recap, I just got back from Vietnam, 5 months ago. Realized before that I understood how important travel was. After I realized how necessary travel is. When you go to a place where you become the other very quickly, first of all, you learn what it feels like to be the other. It's a lot harder to make somebody else the other when you know that feeling. When you are the minority, when you don't speak the language. Every time I see somebody who doesn't speak good English here now, my first thought isn't, why don't they know English? It's, wow, I wonder what their journey's been in the past week. They probably lived in a different country not long ago, wishing that they were in the United States, giving themselves a new life. Or whatever it is. Or their family worked their ass off to get to where they are. Or all these different, these life situational kind of stories. You can't understand that if you don't become the other. And there's no way to become the other when you are where you grew up all the time.
This is going to turn into just a huge advocacy for move, pack up and move. But I can't even help myself. Although, back to my first point, people that ride for their city or their town and who invest back into it, that is divine as well, right? So how do you do all those things? How do you give yourself perspective while also not forgetting where you came from and, like, you know what I mean, putting like helping water those seeds there. I think it's funny, not funny. tragic and stupid when we treat non-English speakers like as if they are uneducated when they obviously know a language.
Absolutely.
They know how to communicate, and you can't speak their language, bro. You know what I mean? Like, their brain is fully functioning. You
They
know
know
what
more
I mean?
than I do.
Right. And so this, like, you know, obviously reactionary take that, you know, we have to get into it, but all of this silliness, how we're treating immigrants with such disdain and acting like they aren't just people, sweet people, worthy people. It's just foolish, you know?
I work at a record label called God Knows. And it's these three Israeli guys who a year ago, they realized that they were getting close to hitting the peak of what they had in Israel. They packed up, they moved out here with nothing. And now they have a gorgeous house, a beautiful label, a beautiful community. I don't know if I could have done that. Are they the best at English in the world? No. They didn't grow up here. Are they better at English than I am Hebrew? By fucking far.
Right.
These people, to get up and move from Detroit was massive for me, and I'm very proud of myself for it.
Yeah.
To get up and move from Israel,
Yeah.
or my other colleague, Daniela, moved from Colombia. One of the smartest, most genuine human beings I know. And her English doesn't have to be as good as mine to understand that. You know?
Yeah.
If you're only looking at the language to understand a human being, you're not looking at the whole picture. There's a story.
What an unfortunate metric, language, when language is art. It is, I mean, all the different ways we have come up with as humans, the different ways to communicate, and indeed things to communicate. That language is even necessary is like delightful, that we have ideas and I want to share them with you, like, right? So, and how we share it, and even when you translate something across languages, it takes a little bit, an idea can take a little bit of a different color, the way, like, this is just magic, right? And so that we use it as a cudgel against one another, as like a dividing point, again, is just fear and foolishness. I
Absolutely.
mean, because it should just be considered what it is, which is like, it's like hating somebody because they like a different genre of music than you, which people probably do that too. But you know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
I have this genre and this way of expressing myself, and you have this way of expressing yourself, and like, what's the problem? You
Absolutely. And also, when you go to something like genre, which is very, very, it's a mirror to whatever culture is at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
What the genre you are in at that moment was probably something different 10 years ago. It probably has stems from 50 other things that you would say you're not part of. And religion and culture and language is all the same thing. These are all just culminations of the human experience, bottlenecking into the moment you're in at that time.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And like, my reaction now when I hear somebody speak okay English is, wow, they speak more than one language. What a fucking smart person.
I think it's something like the science is your brain power expands a couple fold. Like by every new language, you know, it's like unlocking new parts of the neural path, you know?
Man, I think like you were saying, if everybody had the opportunity to leave for more than a day, I'm not talking go to the airport when you're on your way to somewhere. If you can go walk through the streets of Japan and hear nothing but Japanese and culture and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of it coming together, I don't think you can understand how vast this world is.
Yeah.
All I think about now when I think about Vietnam is the fact that they are a day ahead, having a whole beautiful own experience at the exact same time. When I'm fucking worrying about paying rent or what I'm going to eat or how much something is, there's somebody there who's worrying about something far worse. And there's somebody there who's having a far better experience. All of that happening simultaneously, and it has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with me. It's this weird fucking culmination of stories that are just smashing and colliding into each other that make up whatever moment you're in. And that is happening everywhere all the time, with or without you. And it's hard to feel like a big shot when you understand that we are so small.
Yeah. There's something to be gained from like the insignificance of it all, but also it's terrifying.
Terrifying.
So ego death is cool. And if you can like put it that way, where how small we are and how inconsequential it makes it feel like well, why not do the right thing, you know?
Exactly.
And like, oh, I can be playful, and like, oh, suddenly my back doesn't hurt as much because I'm not like beating myself up at all times, you know, and whatever. And my skin looks better because I have a lightness about me, and I can just treat people nice, and I don't have to protect myself at all times, you know?
It also makes you think about, if you think of the people that are no longer with us that you look up to, people who had the biggest impact on the world, and then you realize that we are such a small place compared to the rest of the world, and every place has all those same amount of people that have done just as big things that they look up to that we'll never know about. And we are so worried about becoming one of those people that sometimes we're following a path that isn't consistent with our own version of that.
Yeah.
And I grew up obsessed with counterculture, obsessed with the people who spearheaded that. And I think I became a little too obsessed at points to where I wasn't worried about creating my own difference in the world. I was worried about following somebody else's. And when you go and you travel and you realize
Which is not counterculture.
Which is not at all.
That's just culture again.
That's pop.
Yeah.
And pop, that's the wrong way to put it, because pop is also such a beautiful thing and it's so massive in general.
Yeah.
But
It's derivative.
It's derivative. And
which everything is too. Like, we gotta be light with ourselves. Sometimes you're doing stuff that is a real cap tip
absolutely
to the you know, the giants. And then sometimes you're making a wholly new experience. But just like leading with your heart, I think makes it authentic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you start realizing because of this podcast, I've been very lucky to meet people that I've looked up to, or that their art is something that I ingest very, very personally.
Yeah.
And you hear about people who talk about people, and everything just kind of chases its tail in this industry. You start the people you look up to, you end up meeting, and they become very normal and mundane and beautiful like that. And you start realizing that this whole entire experience is just about, how did you treat the last person that you were with? How did you treat the person who was with you closest to where you are at this moment? And that's it. And everything else just becomes a little bit more separated. And when you start hearing about the same person, I was telling you earlier, I've heard your name come up so many times, and that made a lot of sense. And now it makes a lot more sense. You know, you meet somebody and you understand how genuine they are. And that's why people talk about them. It's not that they are the best guitar player, that they played the biggest stages. I've never heard anything about you outside of the fact that you are the best person.
Cool.
And a sweetheart. And it's like, how could you not want to be that person in the world? You know?
Right. Like, how do you become the Joker?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's hard. Thank you, by the way, for that, for those compliments. It's tough, man. It's just tough for people. I think we are like so much working class, like downward spiral with the addiction thing, with the healthcare thing, with the political schism thing, all
Absolutely.
of it, with the upward flow of all profit, with all this shit, right? It's just tough. And so that people are leading with like a bit of edge and looking for a reason, a scapegoat for why they feel this way, and being lied to about who they're who is
Absolutely
actually the reason for their being downtrodden. So I totally get it, you know, and less than I am holding any individual accountable for not knowing how to be like fully expressive and like know how to like hold everybody up. You know what I mean? I don't know that's any individual's role to do that. We can be part of a community, but we just need the systems to have preferential treatment towards that, towards working class ideals, towards a sharing of ideas, towards outward reach and helping one another and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if we like build it like that, then people will respond that way. In the current system, it makes more sense for a lot of people to be defensive. There's only so much resource, and shit is painful. You know what I mean? So I get it.
Man, it's such a weird...
There's actually plenty of resource, by the way. It's just there's only so much that is allotted to the masses. You know what I mean?
It's how it's being divided.
It's gate kept in a way that's inequitable and untenable. So,
yeah,
you know, that will all come to roost as it always does. But yeah, so I get it. But that's why, of course, we're trying to radiate. We're out here trying to play a simple song. And
Yeah, I guess it's not about telling the message. It's more about living it and showing it and being the person who doesn't need to talk
nails
about
it.
the experience.
I love that assessment.
And I guess that's where I was going with that before. And the reason I believe travel and all these things are so important, and you start to realize after all these different experiences that you can either talk about the person you are, or you can be the person you are. And that's what becomes the forever. You want to be the Jimi Hendrix. You don't talk about being Jimi Hendrix. You find the type of success that he had by being that good, by playing those stages, not about talking about them.
Totally. It's that simple.
That's all you got to do. Go do it. So on a different note, you were saying you design clothes as well.
Yeah, that's been a fun recent detail.
And
But I made these pants though.
did you sew them and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Unreal.
These patches and it's like bleach and some other little things.
Dude, I love it.
Cool.
I love it. During COVID, I got a 4-color press.
You have a whole thing happening. You look great.
This is just thank you Goodwill and thank you my buddy Tristan.
Hey man, you got those at Goodwill? The silk ones?
$4 in the women's section.
Come on.
$40 in Vietnam.
Golden, man.
And they're made to my feet. I don't know. You can do it. You don't have to do all. This doesn't have to be an expensive world to look
Well,
good.
these pants were Vic's pants.
Really?
Vic Mensa's pants, yeah, but he never fit in them. And they're like real nice. They're Coach pants. And I was like, I just don't wear slacks, but now I do.
Oh, those were slacks?
Yeah, they were like like too nice even.
Damn. Well,
And
they're
I was like, I'm going to
badass.
save these for a black tie dinner. And I was like, I don't know, who am I kidding? And
So
we bleached them.
you bleached them. What did you put the different designs, either the internal cutout or the external cutout, and
Yeah,
then
it was
filled it with
cookie
bleach?
cutters. They're star cookie
Really?
cutters. Yeah, to cut out little Christmas cookies or whatever.
Unreal. Would you spray it?
No, with a brush. Like you put it down and then you either brush on the outside of it or brush on the inside of it.
That's badass.
Yeah, pretty elementary.
I
But
used to
it's
do a lot of
cool.
that stuff with, I would like tie-dye with bleach, but I would do like tie it the way you would tie-dye.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
What you want to make sure you do is wash it real good afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the first time I did it with bleach, not on these pants, I gave those pants to my homie Snake. First time I did it, I didn't really wash them really well and I wore them out. And then I was out when it started burning my whole leg.
Burning?
And I was gone.
And they get thin.
Out in wherever I was at.
They'll start breaking. It's literally just eating away at it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So if you,
Okay.
and also depending on what kind of bleach you use, it'll be a different color. If you use really, really pure bleach, it'll be whiter.
Right.
And the more the bleach that I use, I like the orange bleach.
I like the orange.
That's
I'm
where I'm
big
at.
on orange, yeah, for sure. And that's my color for
Yeah,
sure.
that's unreal.
Cool.
Well, it's been fucking really, really cool talking to you. I'm really glad we got to do this.
What a space, man. I really am grateful that you had me come in
And
here.
I'm grateful you're here. I'm glad that
we'll do
we
it
got to
again.
make this happen.
Yeah.
And again, there's been so many great things said about you, and it's cool to.
Can we shout out Christian French, who you guys go
Fuck yeah.
on camping trips to like San Diego, and I'm trying to come.
I love that.
Yeah,
dude
you don't
so
let me
much.
know.
Who do you want to come next time?
Yeah, of course.
All right, come camping. I go. This was the first weekend I haven't gone in months.
It's gonna be cold down there now, or no?
We go. We've been going up to the Angeles, or we went to the Angeles a couple weeks ago. But I go there every weekend.
In a cabin or a tent?
I do my car. I have
In
it
the
built.
car?
I have my Jetta built out with a full size bed in it.
Nice.
Got all the gear. Literally doesn't get unpacked. It stays in there.
Wow.
And I just go. I normally go every Saturday by myself, or if
Living
somebody's
it.
around
Every week?
every week. That's where I edit a lot of my videos. It's the best.
Huh. You just have a generator?
Yeah,
To
I have a
run the-
Jackery power source. If you want to sponsor me, I could use a bigger one, Jackery.
Cool.
I have
Shout
a
out
Jackery
Jackery.
power source, a Coleman little grill, and I
Wow.
got a bunch of like frozen or not frozen. What's it called? Dry freeze meals.
Mhm.
A bunch of MREs. Got all the stuff.
Do you have a dog?
I've got a dog. You said?
Yeah, you do have a dog.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she was in here.
Luna's inside.
Yeah,
she
cool.
comes a lot.
Oh,
During the winter, it's tough because I don't want to put her in a sleeping bag or something. It just gets too cold. But during the summer, I bring her a lot.
cool.
And then my girlfriend comes. And, yeah, dude. If
Living.
you can find a way to be sustainable in this, then you can find a career forever. If you can find a way to forcefully shut off and still feel like you're moving forward, you're good. You're good to go. It's such a fucking big difference.
Cool.
Do you have anything that does that for you?
The close is a real cool, like meditative experience. When I find when I'm like stitching a thing, I can like super zoom in and like go cross-eyed damn near.
And you'll have something for after. Like there's a reward.
It still is like a productive energy that I'm like spastic about, but it's not music or art in the way. I mean, maybe now it's starting to have more meaning, but in the beginning it was just like didn't, and so it was very carefree. Whereas the music and the lyrics and stuff is, weighted.
Yeah. Well, then it becomes part of the experience of who you are as well. That's wearing something is clearly the way you dress is part of the way that you push your life forward. It helps you feel like you are the most you and progressing.
You're living proof right now. Radiating.
And I'm so glad we got to do this.
Same.
I appreciate you, brother.
Cool, man. Thanks.
And
thanks for watching.
Do you have anything you want people to check out?
So I'll have this musical coming out. It's called Blood Love. We just put it on stage for the first time last month in Wisconsin in this theater called the Howard there, this little haunted theater. We just like delivered the thing for the first time, this big project. Wow. And you can't quite see it yet, but you will be able to see it in like the beginning of the year,
That's amazing.
And then we'll find a stage to put it on, but we'll be like rolling out the film side of it. And it's like dancing and singing and rock and roll and all this dark gothy stuff.
I love it.
And it's a musical that is totally about to just pop off. So that and TBD.
TBD. All right. Well, once all of it comes back out, let's do this again and talk some more.
I'm in.
Thank you, brother. And
this is an experiment.
To everybody listening,
I'm Falconry. This is an experiment.
Thank you, brother. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, bud.
The experience is the experiment.